I'm Christopher Sarro, president of Holt Construction. I'm proud to announce that the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, in partnership with American Airlines, URW Airports, has announced a $125 million commercial redevelopment of JFK's Terminal 8. As the project's construction partner, Holt Construction is pleased to partner with URW to introduce our new information and technical assistance program designed to connect you to opportunities available across the 24-month redevelopment of Terminal 8, all part of the Port Authority's $19 billion airport redevelopment program that is transforming New York's airport system. Working with our partners at the Port Authority, American Airlines, URW, and Phoenix Infrastructure, we have designed a special series of programs that will help you learn more about the project, the business and contracting opportunities that are right for your company, and how your business can participate. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to partnering together.
Hello, and welcome to session 2, a preview of our bid packages. So today we're going to talk about our early bid packages that are going out and tips on bidding for work. First thing I'm going to start with is having our panelists introduce themselves. So can we start with Alan?
Alan Bates, Senior Project Manager, Holt Construction.
All right, and Joe?
Joe Martinez, Executive Director of Pre-Construction Services for Holt Construction.
And finally, Rob.
Hi, Rob Cruzan, Senior Project Manager of Holt Construction.
Wonderful. So the first thing we're going to get into is an overview of the project and a relationship to the bid. So starting with you, Rob, can you give us an overview of the project?
Hi, yeah. So this is a $125 million retail redevelopment program for Westfield to upgrade their retail offerings at Terminal 8. The initial phases of the project will focus on expanding the leasable square footage in the terminal and the associated utilities required to support those retail offerings. We'll be infilling 2 ramps and 2 of the walkways with concrete to provide additional floor space for the retail and restaurant customer experience.
Wonderful. And can you also tell us about the current site conditions?
Yeah, so this is an active terminal and will continue to be active throughout the duration of the project. The work areas will be captured using barricades to allow for work to take place securely while maintaining airport operations.
Awesome. All right, and Alan, can you tell us what are going to be the first trades that go out to bid?
The first trades that will go out to bid are the trades associated with the ramp infills and the remove of the walkways. So demolition, electrical, concrete, masonry, terrazzo, architectural metal for the most part.
Okay, great. And now let's get some basics down. Joe, can you explain what is bid scope and bid leveling?
Absolutely. Well, scope and leveling is kind of the same. Scope is what is covered under a particular bid, and then the leveling process or scope leveling is a term that we use in the CMGC community to make sure that all subcontractors' pricing is covered, right? And the same scope is covered. We do that via email. We send out a document that has a fairly detailed scope, provides the drawings, addenda, specifications, and we make sure that each contractor has that scope included in their price. Whatever is not included, we ask that particular contractor put a value to the scope of work.
Okay, great. And now let's talk a little bit about pre-bid walkthroughs. So Alan, can you tell us if on this project there will be pre-bid walkthroughs? And if so, how important is it for a subcontractor to attend the walkthrough?
That's a TBD at the minute. There are specific challenges with getting multiple trades into the terminal to review the conditions, obviously the security challenges and a lot of things there. Ideally, we will do pre-bid walkthroughs, but it might be limited to select trades. Obviously, that would be done once we've sent the bids out. There would be a walkthrough date generated, but there'd be limited flexibility on numbers and the trades that we would invite to that.
Okay, great. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about reviewing drawings. So Joe, should a subcontractor review all the drawings or just the ones that would typically be applicable to their trade? And can you also, just share with us what specifically a subcontractor should be looking at when they're reviewing drawings?
Okay, so my suggestion, I'm not here to tell anybody how to do their particular job or how to run their business, but my suggestion would be, to the best of their ability, try to review every drawing that's in the set. There's several reasons for it. One is there could be details that are not on, let's say, an electrical drawing that we need, and if found on an architectural set, meaning an engineering drawing versus an architectural. But more importantly, when they go into, if they are successful, and when they go into contract, most contracts will be structured as such. They will sign a contract on the entire set of drawings, specs, and addenda. So in order to mitigate their risk, I would suggest at least giving a high level, cursory review of the entire set to see if there is something that is said, let's say, on another drawing that would not necessarily be in their set that they bid on. I'm trying to think, a dry or electrical contractor may look at a reflected ceiling plan, but yet if he goes to a detail and elevation, there are some lights that are hidden there as well. So it would be my suggestion to look at everything.
Great. And you touched on this a bit earlier, but what do you suggest to contractors who don't necessarily have the bonding capacity or satisfy all the insurance requirements?
Well, if you don't have the bonding capacity, I'm going to tell you right now, my suggestion is I would suggest to strongly pass on a particular opportunity. Insurance, on the other hand, is something that I would suggest they contact their respective carrier.
Great. And what are some of the risks that companies should be aware of when bidding their work?
Tons of risk. I mean, that's why we call it estimating. It's really not a science, but one is not reading the specifications. For those who still use paper drawings, not checking scale. A lot of people now use on-screen takeoff, so the scale can basically gets generated by the computer. Not reading all the drawings, architectural through engineering, as we said before. Not reading the schedule that's provided by the CM. A lot of times, you look at a job, you're not reading the schedule, and you find out that there are materials that have exceeded the scheduled time. That can be something that can be a risk. And then just simple calculation mistakes. I can't tell you how many times in reviewing proposals with contractors, they're performing an estimate, and as they're modifying costs or spreadsheets, a formula wasn't carried over. And some other things to do is, I think we were talking about before, site visits. It's very important to get a site visit, especially if it's a type of project you haven't really bid on before, something you're not familiar with. Let's get familiar with the site and see what's going on. If you're looking to provide alternate specifications, make sure that you call it out. So then when it does come time for a contract, you say, hey, listen, my proposal was based on this specification, not what was originally specified by the architect or engineer because of a lead time, because it didn't come in that color anymore, but just because the specification was wrong. So as long as you bring a lot of this stuff up front, it's fun.
Great. Now, we all know that working in the airport environment can be challenging and can impact the bid and comes with its own set of, complexities. So, Rob, you've worked with Holt on both airport and non-airport projects in New York. So can you tell us some specific items that contractors should consider when they're bidding on an airport project specifically?
So the terminal is active, and with that comes security, by Customs, TSA, and LSOC, who control the terminal security. All workers will have to be properly vetted, so we need to make sure that workers aren't on no-fly lists. Additionally, there's time that it takes to get workers in and materials into the space. That's not what you would traditionally see, on a project in New York City. The badging process takes time, and if you're able to get a cited badge, it increases your efficiency, but it's difficult to get materials and people into the space. Additionally, it's active terminal, can't miss any flights, so we have to maintain terminal operations at all times. Additionally, the space is governed by QAD through the Port Authority, not the New York City Department of Buildings. So that could be slightly different than what contractors are typically used to working with.
Great. Now, switching gears a bit and talking more about, again, when you're actually bidding. Joe, what are some key elements you should consider when you're doing your first takeoff for your estimate?
Well, first off, one of the first things you do is this a project that's in your warehouse? If you're not familiar with the aviation or construction in the aviation environment, standard things may not be in your warehouse. It's the same type of rules as Rob was saying earlier, same type of rules that go on a standard retail project, let's say outside of the airport, are not the same type of rules that we have here. So is this project in your warehouse? Is it something you've done before? I mean, I'm not advocating to limiting or siloing your business, but to make sure that it's a project you have the ability to undertake. Do you have the resources for the project? Are you financially able to support the project? So you have to be able to float some money. Is a bond required? Do you have the bonding capacity? As we talked earlier, do you have the insurance requirements? Can you meet them? Do you have the personnel to perform the work? It may be that at the time the project comes out, you probably have the current manpower supply, and then you look at your schedule and you realize that no, your backlog will prohibit you from properly manning the particular project. And I'm sure there's a checklist that we all have. So once you go through that checklist, if you've established that you're going to pursue the project, just go for it. I mean, at that point, you're at a position where you go, you read and understand the drawings. I know it sounds basic, and I've said this a lot of times during the estimating process, is kind of build the drawing in your head. Don't just take square footage of ceilings and linear footage of drywall or count outlets and light fixtures. Literally build the drawing in your head. I can't stress it enough to understand the drawings and the specs. It's a common theme in estimating. Before you go, there's like a checklist. I'm sure that every company has it. Make sure you go through that checklist. Make sure it's, because again, everybody, once you put a proposal in or start, you say that go, it's financial. It's money that's coming out of the business to put a proposal together to give either to an architect, engineer, or contractor, or end user, or client.
Great. And can you also explain to us what an RFI is and the importance of submitting them in a timely manner as you're working on your bid?
Yes, great question. I mean, RFIs, it's legitimately what they are, right? It's a request for information. So it's something where the information is just not clear on the drawings. It's a little ambiguous. There is something that would require information to properly price. So these are just questions that normally come to a CM. We normally go through the drawings and have a list of them. A lot of them tend to be duplicated from the trades. We then forward them to the architect. We give them a limited amount of time, roughly around a week, to respond to them. They either come back as addenda or just responses to an RFI. They too become contractual obligations, and they get embedded into the contract as well.
Great. So now let's talk about some issues to avoid when you're bidding. Joe, what are some of the most common errors you see when bids are actually submitted?
Kind of a lot of the stuff we talked about earlier, not reading the specifications, not checking the scale, not going through the complete set of drawings, calculation mistakes. We kind of, we hit upon a lot of this stuff previously, but that's it. And not understanding the job. I think schedule plays a big factor. During the COVID era, we had supply chain issues. Are we 100% out of the woods? No, but we're close. I think some of these factors still have to be thought about when putting bids together, and that you don't make those errors. You don't commit to a product to deliver and you just can't deliver it. So I think, we know in our business that, we're only as good as our last job. We can do 100 great jobs and we mess up one, and that's what we're known for.
Right. And how do you look at bids that come in way lower than the average bids for that trade?
Well, this goes back to what we talked about earlier, that whole leveling process. And unfortunately, the first thing we figure is that the contractor made an error. We call them, we say, I think you should take another look at your bid. You may have missed some scope. There could have been a calculation error. And 9 times out of 10, they say, well, how off are we? In fairness to the other contractors that bid, we tend to just say, we advise you to just take a look at your bid, and then we come back to them. And then that leveling process kind of flushes out whatever potential errors that they would have made. So it kind of flushes itself out.
Okay, so now let's say, a contractor has submitted their bids to us. What do you recommend for the smaller contractors who've never worked with Holt to stay on top of the project? Should they reach out to us after they submitted a bid to check on it and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. I've said this to contractors, especially some of the newer contractors that are working with Holt now. They should definitely follow up. As the old adage goes, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. I'll say it myself. We have a tendency to fall back in our comfort level, in our comfort zone, and we continue to go to the same contractors. And we are trying to get a community of contractors that works together as a team, right? So I would definitely advise any new contractor that's working with Holt to please contact our estimators. They have lots of stuff going on at one time. Some of them may be carrying 5 to 6 bids at a particular time. So they don't get an opportunity to get back to everybody. So yes, definitely contact us and stay in touch with us at all times.
And then if they don't win a bid, should they request a post-bid review with us?
Yes, absolutely. At that point, if we are successful and they were not successful, unfortunately, we will disclose on a percentage basis. We won't go for dollars and cents, but we will tell them where they were high. Thus, again, the leveling sheets, we can actually tell them if they were, particularly low on a particular item, or they were excessively high on an item. So yes, I would definitely do that. Again, we want to have a group of contractors that are our partners, and I think if we help them, they would be happy to bid for us. They would, they'd look to be on our side, and we go in as a team.
Great. And Alan, this one's for you. Can you give us some examples of project risks specifically in the aviation world?
Yeah, I mean, there's a security risk. So all tools should be manifested inside the gang boxes, and they should check those tools. Leaving tools lying around puts us and the contractor at risk of a breach of rules. Additionally, occasionally workers get into trouble outside of the airport. They end up on a no-fly list that will prevent them from having access to the airport and access to the work site. Protecting the public and the passengers from construction, making sure the separation, that's a time-related risk usually, but then it can also lead to some practicalities, getting materials in, etc. But mostly separating the passengers from construction is risk mitigation. On the second floor inside the terminal, there's the baggage operations. There's a lot of moving parts there to that, belts that move at limited notice, and obviously work around that can be hazardous. Working around facilities in terms of their ability to shut down MEPs, electrical services, etc. That's a challenge as well. So that's a time-related risk to the contractors. So those are a couple of examples.
Great. And now, finally, on the upcoming bids that we're going to be releasing over the next few months, Alan, is there anything special you're looking for on these projects?
In terms of that, just, appropriate experience for doing the type of work that we're bidding out. We understand that not everybody will have airport experience, but coming with an understanding, asking the questions, informing themselves, a qualified bid that covers all of the scope at the lowest possible price. Obviously, we're in a cost-sensitive world where we're going to be awarding on the basis generally of lowest qualified bid. Experience I mentioned, and then local contractors and diverse contractors meeting the Port Authority's minority and women-owned business. If they are not a certified women-owned business or minority-owned business, if they have as part of their supply chain certified suppliers, certified vendors or second-tier subcontractors, that would be a tremendous benefit to their bid.
Great. And finally, this is for anyone that wants to answer. What are some tips that you can share with the newer firms who haven't bid on a project of this scale before?
I'll start and Rob or I can add. I mean, the only thing I ask is that contractors communicate, right? If they don't understand something, if they don't understand the drawings, if they don't understand logistics, as both Alan and I think Rob both touched on, just call us. I mean, ask the questions. You know, as the old adage goes again, you know, no question is a stupid question, but especially when you're coming into a new environment, our people know what that environment's like. So I would strongly ask that any new contractor that wants to work with Holt, or, you know, just ask the questions. You know, we can help. We can help. You know, some things may sound a little out of whack from what they're normally used to, but that's the aviation environment. You know, that's what happens here. So please ask questions.
And Rob and Alan, anything to add on top of what Joe just said?
You know, the three things for success is coordination, communication, and execution. So if we do those three things, that's definitely the pathway to success.
All right, great. Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk with me. And now we're going to switch over to our live Q&A and take some questions from the audience.